recording. Got myself another Bulldog. Start by getting the plastic off this guy. You can see they ship it in this plastic. How cool is that? Box cutter, we'll just peel that off of there. Make a much better video if you can see what we're dealing with. Is this target, the Bulldog 450 XL, is it enough to stand up to fast crossbows like the Ravin R29X? We are going to find out in this video. We're also going to take a look at the history of crossbow targets and help you decide what crossbow target is best for you. This, Friends of Bunjie, is the extensive crossbow target video that was requested by a friend of Bunjie. Now, I've never done an extensive crossbow target video. I am happy to announce that Bulldog sent this to me. I sent them questions about my other target, my other Bulldog. It's out here in the yard behind me in the 60-yard backyard. But as you know, had some issues with the Ravin, the R29X, shooting right through the thing, right? So it blew the backside out of that target, and it wasn't enough to stand up to it. We'll do a speed test through the Bulldog. Hopefully don't pass clean through the Bulldog. We're gonna find out. And let's poke one through there. Holy crap, went right through the Bulldog, pretty much. 453. 453. Did you see the stuff fly off the other end of that? That is one loud crossbow. Wadded that arrow up. It does not like the Bulldog. One bit does not like these Ravins. So we're gonna have to shoot at the Kinetic on the next one, I think. But anyway, close range is what you expect. That 150 is gonna go clean through there. But that is the 100 grainer. And if you look, yeah, we've got to be more careful than that. Whoa! Whoa! So it blew a hole in my target, that's for sure. That is not, this is a piece of Bulldog. That's what a Bulldog looks like on the inside. Man, put that back in here. I'm sorry, Bulldog. I'm sorry. We'll get some duct tape and fix that up. Good Lord. Bits and pieces from that target leading clear back here all the way into our box room, the room that I call the box room. Turn that light on. But all the way into this room, that's part of the target right there. Here's what's interesting. This target is a lot lighter than that other Bulldog. It seems a lot lighter. I hoisted this up here with no problems whatsoever. This one is supposed to stand up a lot more. Again, this is the 450 XL. I'm thinking the 450 refers to 450 feet per second. This is a 450 feet per second crossbow. Seems like a good match to me, but we're gonna find out. Let's talk a little bit about the history of crossbow targets. I can tell you way back when I first got Bunjie in September of 2010. Can you believe that? It's been like 15 years. Bunjie is now in its 16th season. Killed a bear in Manitoba in its 16th season. That is an amazing accomplishment. What a great crossbow. My first target with that was just made out of styrofoam. It was a cheapo Walmart thing that I went up and bought, and I could shoot at it, and it was good for, as long as you didn't shoot in the same spot twice, you were fine. It actually stopped those arrows. It's a good point to be made, I think, about how underpowered that crossbow is with stock 350 grain arrows. It is completely unacceptable in the modern era, in the 2020s, to be shooting something that is that underpowered, in my opinion. And the reason for that is it wouldn't even pass through that target with a field point on it. It was only this thick, just not acceptable. You wouldn't even dream of using a crossbow like this on a target like that. The next sort of step up in targets back in the day is the layered foam targets, right? It's like a whole bunch of pieces of foam layered this way, and then they crush it all together and seal it all together, and it's kind of stopping your arrow. That style of target worked very well for me for years. However, with my modern crossbows now, whether it's the SWAT X1s shooting between 350, 380 feet per second, depending on what arrow I'm using, that crossbow blows right through a target like that. You'll lose veins. It's just not a good idea. Certainly this crossbow, the R29X from Ravin, a 450 feet per second crossbow, it would be completely unacceptable to use that target on a crossbow like that. So really, in this day and age, I know some companies like Excalibur still sell that layered foam target. But if I'm looking at targets today, I would not look at one of those styles of targets. Those targets just are not going to do it for you as a modern crossbow hunter. It's something that even if it works with the crossbow you're using now, it is a matter of time before that becomes obsolete, before you find out that it is simply not enough target for your crossbow. Because the next crossbow you get, if you get a modern crossbow, it's not going to work with that style of target. Which brings up another interesting point. When I was in Manitoba, Bunjie and I, and Genevieve with Bunjie Jr., we used a target like that to sight in, and it was fine. It stopped the arrows just fine. But that goes to show, here we're at 0.7 slugs of momentum with both of those crossbows, right? I upped the arrow weights to get them into that ballpark. And this is another interesting observation. Both of those crossbows would work fine with that kind of target, even with 0.7 slugs of momentum with the heavier arrows. I'm shooting like 0.74 slugs of momentum out of the SWAT X1. There's no way that I could use that target. You're probably not going to have a modern crossbow that only gets 0.7 slugs of momentum. You're probably going to be in the 0.74s with any crossbow that's kind of shoots around 400 feet per second with a 400 or so grain arrow. Those styles of targets, I believe, are obsolete. Let's not get those going forward. Let's not use those types of targets. That's enough talk. Let's take this target out, put it together in a 60-yard backyard, put it on the cart, remove the old Bulldog, put in the new Bulldog, right? And see if this bad boy is going to stand up to the Black Widow. Ooh, man. All right, there's actually like 4 kinds of targets that we're going to talk about. One of them is the discharge target, these little practice targets like that. Some targets are field point only. These bag style targets are not for broadheads. So you sight in, get your scope close, get real comfortable with it, do all your practicing in the backyard with your bag type target. They're fantastic. They'll take a lot of shots. You can pull the arrows out real easy, but you got to shoot broadheads at solid targets like these blob or block style targets is what you're looking for. This little ball is handy to have. These are discharge style targets, and this guy, you can just take it, throw it out in the yard at a random distance, take a shot at it. You can keep it in the back of your truck. Usually carry at least one of these with me in the back of the pickup truck during the hunting season, right behind the passenger seat. Just whip it out, throw it on the ground. I can shoot at it real quick. And I've always got it handy as a discharge target. SWAT X1s, for example, don't decock, so I just shoot them at this target. I also will take these and set them out at random distances sometimes. In the 60-yard backyard, I've got a lot of targets set up here, and we're going to talk about that and do some shooting later on. You just grab this little handle right here, throw the thing, roll it out there, and take a shot at it with the Burris Oracle X, a range-finding scope. I can always test my yardages and see if I can hit a bullseye and all that good stuff. It's a really good practice thing to get a random distance and shoot at. When I talk about the 2 styles of targets, the 2 types of targets. This is target type A. This is the bag style targets. These are both high-end ones that stop a lot of arrows. This is the one that's been shot out, and I just put tape over there so I know where not to shoot. Those are the shot out portions of the targets. And the Kinetic, these things are fantastic. When you get one of these, you can pull an arrow out with no problem whatsoever. Just have the hammer on the cart so that when I get done, I can give it a good beating, right? And you can whip it back into shape like that. Leave the hammer right on the cart for next time. Nice rubber mallet or a wooden mallet. Beat it right up, and what it does is it readjusts all that stuff on the inside so it'll start taking arrows and doing a better job. For broadheads, we got to look somewhere else, don't we? Oh yeah, we got to look at the blocks or the blobs, something like that, these foam targets. This did a lot of good for me for a long time, this style of target. If you look, I got this guy randomly set up, but it's taken a lot of arrows as I practiced and tested arrows on it. Very little. If you look at my targets, what's funny about this stuff, it looks like I'm a terrible shot, and I'm not the best shot in the world, that's for sure. But most of my shots, the vast majority of the shots that I take are actually testing arrows. And it's, you know, the crossbow is not sighted in. I'm just shooting to see how arrows perform and if they perform consistently. That is not the same thing as shooting over and over after I've got it sighted in. I actually really don't shoot very much when something is sighted in, I just leave it. The only shooting I do from that point on is to make sure that it's still sighted in, if that makes any sense. So I actually don't, you know, most of my shots are done with a crossbow that is not sighted in. So don't pay any attention to where all the holes are. This style, however, I don't think you're going to want to use as much anymore, okay? This is a foam style target that for us as crossbow hunters is not going to be as valuable going forward. I say that even though it's a crossbow target, even though it's very light, has lots of fresh sides, right, 6 sides, I don't like these targets because they will not stand up to higher energy crossbows. Once you get over the 400 feet per second mark, you're going to have a problem with crossbows like that, with targets like that. Same thing with this guy right down here, and that's why I put them usually at longer distances, because you lose energy as it goes down range, and therefore it won't pass through as bad. If I shot at that target at 20 yards, most of my crossbows would bury up to the fletchings, and you'd have a problem, right? We start pulling veins off with a target like that. At 40 yards, that target's pretty much okay, and this target has spent most of its life down at 60 yards, and it stops most of my crossbows at 60 yards. Again, not the Ravin. The Ravin's a whole different animal, right? Once you get to the ultra modern speeds, that 450 rated speed of a crossbow and above, you're going to have problems, and you've got to get the high-end targets, whether it's a Bulldog, a Kinetic, or the other one I'm going to show you here for broadheads, okay? Big shot right here. This big shot, I love it. Love that target. This is your broadhead target. You can shoot this all day long with broadheads. It will pull out pretty good with broadheads because the broadhead, when it hits it, it opens up, okay, a path, and then it pulls out a little easier. Field points on this bad boy, it certainly is going to stop them, but you have to give it a little twist in order to get that out of there and break that. Because what happens when that field point hits this target, it enters it, it goes in, and it heats up the target because it's moving so fast. And the end result is that you end up with a heat seal, sort of glues it in place, and it's harder to get it out. So I don't like to do that if I don't have to. I try to shoot the field points at the bag style targets, and then the broadheads only at this. But I put it out here, and I'm not afraid to do it. But sometimes you got to stand on it. Like I'll stand the target up. Like the arrows will be sticking out here, so I'll tip it up so the arrow is sticking out this way. Stand on top and pull it out. Be careful doing that stuff, but you can do it. The other kind of target you got to talk about, and this is a difficult one for modern crossbow hunters, but it's a lot of fun. You got to have a 3D style target, don't you? It just dresses up the backyard. It's a lot of fun. These have stakes down here to hold the feet in place, and I hit them into the ground, hammer them down in, and then put the target in place so it doesn't knock them over. They have removable inserts, right? You can take that insert out and replace it, and this will stop most of my crossbows. I don't dare shoot the Ravin at this. Certainly don't want to shoot the Ravin at this one. These are both, I believe, Reinhardt's. Don't quote me on that. I hope they are, but you got to have a nice deer target. These don't like to stay outside, even if they're under cover. This was under the balcony for years, and it still gets real porous, right? But it will stop the arrows. This style will. The previous one that I had, I ended up cutting arrows out of it and ended up throwing that target away. This one, on the other hand, does seem to work pretty good. Pretty happy with it, and I can't complain. I think that this is a fun one for the backyard for the older crossbows. It's not as good. The Ravin doesn't get to shoot at any of these. Doesn't get to shoot at any of these. We need Reinhardt and other companies to step up and come up with some targets that will withstand Ravin speeds. These targets, though, I think are important just to motivate you, to get you outside, to get you doing fun stuff, but also to be thinking three-dimensionally on a deer. It's important for that, and it gives a little bit more of a reality to your hunting outdoors and all that stuff, to your shooting when you're in a 60-yard backyard. Practice is one thing. You need familiarity with your weapon. The backyard can give you that, but it can't give you hunting experience. This sort of replicates that at least a little bit, and I think that's important. The boar target, again, replicates that a little bit, right? We even have a little coyote up here. If you look, this little fella, right? The coyote, the Ravin will blow clean through that. There's no doubt in my mind. So maybe I'll shoot that just to waste an arrow. I don't know. We'll find out later. One big thing I want to talk to you about when we talk about targets and we talk about shooting in our backyards is the backstop, right? The target is one thing, but if you miss the target or if it goes through the target, where's the arrow going to end up? Very important that you think about that. Here I'm shooting downhill, so it's not going to glance up and go across and hit neighbors or anything like that. There are no houses that way all the way to that mountain. There's no houses because the only thing down there is a railroad tracks that goes through, and if there's people on the railroad tracks, it would be a train, and I'd be able to hear that. Beyond that is a cornfield and then the river, and the other side of the river is the mountain and a road. So I couldn't possibly shoot to that river or to the mountain or anything like that. It's not going to happen. So I'm not worried about that. This is just a really good, it's one of the reasons I bought this place and moved here, was so that I would have this backdrop. I know that this is a good, safe place to shoot. Plus, the other houses around here are up there, down in there, and they're set back behind my house. My house is further this way. So really, there's never a time where the crossbow is even accidentally pointed at a neighbor's house. Very important. So be mindful of that. In this day and age with high-speed crossbows, you can't stress that stuff enough. I don't talk about safety a lot on Death by Bunjie because that is between you and the manufacturer of your gear. That is your responsibility, not mine, okay? And I don't want you coming back and saying, "Oh, Rich, you didn't tell me this." Not my job. You need to read manuals, you need to do research, and use your common sense. If you do that, all is well. Enough yammering. Let's get the Bulldog on here. Getting to the end of Crossbow Appreciation Month, and I don't want to lose my voice or stress it any more than I have to. But it's great to have a cart like this. Look into getting a cart where you can store your targets and move them in and out of your garage, out of your basement, out of your 60-yard backyard shed, whatever you got. But you get a nice cart to put them on, and that way you got room, that way they're really mobile. I don't leave targets outside. I don't think it's a smart thing to be leaving targets outside. They will wear out. You can put tarps over them, but even that, I think it's soaking moisture up from the ground, right? So I think that they will last longer, certainly if you keep them under cover. Oh man, woo! This one is definitely heavier. Man, it's definitely heavier. Old one, new one, you can see the difference. Definitely going to be a little bit better at stopping arrows. But strangely enough, the skinnier one is actually heavier. And put this guy on here. Oh yeah, that's right. Fortunately, it's not wider, it's just deeper. It's pretty nice on there, doesn't it? Brand new target. Nothing like a brand new Bulldog. Oh yeah. There's the old Bulldog. It is not going to the dump or nothing like that. It's got plenty of life left in it. I am going to find a home for that at the bottom of the 60-yard backyard and probably cart it around right in that wheelbarrow. All right, air conditioner's running, so I'll get closer so you can hopefully hear what I'm saying. But target's in place, 20 yards off this bench. One of the reasons I built this fancy new bench was so that I could shoot off of it at times. The sun's just crested over the trees, so it's not as blazing hot right here. I'm going to crank this back and shoot one out of the Black Widow at that target using the Hawke FFP zoom scope, which I really like. I get to zoom right in. It doesn't affect the accuracy. I really like the zoom scope because, man, my old eyes here, I can zoom right in and I can see the difference in the reticles real easy, read the numbers real easy, and then we'll take a shot with that and see how it goes. Really like this crank too. You want to inspect your arrow, look it over good. Snap that knock right in place. This Hawke scope, I adjusted, not the zoom, I got it zoomed all the way in, but I adjusted the focus ring on it, and I can see the pattern in the fabric, like the burlap fabric, the cross-checking of the fabric in that target through this scope at 20 yards. That's fantastic. Look into the Zoom FFP from Hawke. You really want to take a close look, no pun intended, but you really want to take a close look at that scope. deathbybunjie.com/gear, the gear page on deathbybunjie.com. Check out that scope. I did a little write-up of it on there, did a video on that scope as well. I'm really liking that scope. Another reason I want to get good with this crossbow, comfortable with the Black Widow, so that I can hunt with that crossbow in the fall. I'm even figuring out the nocks. So, you know, hopefully we can get there. I just got to get so I like shooting it. Man. Oh. Oh. I can't say enough about this scope, the Zoom FFP from Hawke. I'm telling you, I am a Burris Oracle X guy. I am a range finding scope guy. But this thing, this crossbow combination, and check out this beautiful table. But the Ravin R29X on, and with that scope on there, and if we walk out, all I did, 20 yards, right? 20 yards, a little bit low. No, it ain't low. But it's not low at all. Look at that. First shot. I'm telling you, through that scope, I could see this checkering pattern. I could see this when I focused that scope. And that allowed me to make this beautiful shot. The first shot on this beautiful target that stopped a Ravin R29X arrow. Stopped it beautifully. Look at that. It just stopped right here. The Bulldog XL 450. What a great scope. What a great crossbow. What a beautiful arrow. What a beautiful target, right? Bulldogs are beautiful. You never thought that you'd find a beautiful bulldog, but it's a fact. But that's not all, right? That's not all. Can you pull the arrow out? That's the real question, Rich. Come on, right? Let's find out together. Ravin R29X. Zoom FFP scope from Hawke. Bulldog 450 XL. Bulldog Plus it is. And we're going to see, can we pull this arrow out? Are you ready? I'm grabbing it. I'm going to grab and growl. Here it goes. Are you ready? Wow. Holy that, excuse me, I didn't mean to say that. I am just really surprised. I'm surprised and embarrassed because I didn't mean to say that. But this target and this target pull the same. Can you believe that? This thing not only stopped it with ease, just like the Kinetic does. I've been bragging about the Kinetic because I really, really like that crossbow target from Morel. But also, this Bulldog, I got to tell you, not only did it stop it with the same level of ease, the same amount of penetration, but it pulled, it's two-finger pulling. I'm gripping it like the old Bulldog. This pulled with ease, okay? Very similar target, very similar feel. So for field points, this is a field point only target, right? We talked about that. But man, it definitely is set up for business, okay? So I'm telling you right now, this is a high-end crossbow target. Will it work with a 470? You'd have to contact Bulldog and ask them specifically, because I don't have one anymore to test. Maybe down the road we'll get another faster Ravin like that. If I make good friends with the Black Widow, with the R29X, maybe there is a 470 or 500 or something like that in my future. I don't know. But I really do like that crossbow. But a lot of stuff going on here. I know targets, arrows, scopes, crossbows. But the big thing here, I can tell you, Bulldog Plus, it's a winner. It's a winner. I love it. Times change, right? Times change. Targets have to change. As we change, as crossbows change, the scopes have to change. As the scopes and the crossbows change, the targets have to change. And we're in a era, the most beautiful era in crossbow hunting history, because not only do we have these great crossbows and scopes, but the targets have now caught up to that technology, right? Before we had targets that just weren't working, but now we've got targets that can withstand modern and ultra modern crossbow technology. It's a great time to be a crossbow hunter. Real important difference between these two targets though. This is a cheaper target, so if you're looking for a bargain that really, really performs, it's a good target, it really is. Ease of pull and stops just any crossbow out there, right? and it's cheaper than this target. However, look at the difference in size, and I'm telling you, I really like the Bulldog for that reason. The extra size is important. I call it the tour of the Bulldog. When I'm sighting in, you might be shooting a dozen arrows. You can work yourself around without shooting at the same spot twice. It takes wear and tear off of the target, but it also, as you go around to these different dots, it also means you're not going to be hitting your arrow with the next arrow, and that's very important. Here you're limited in terms of dots. Yeah, you've got these other dots, you can put more dots on here, but the other thing is, when you are first shooting the crossbow, it's nice to have a real big area, right? Because what if the crossbow's way off? And this will help you find out. You shoot right at the center the first time, and then you have a lot of confidence when you move around and shoot at one of these other dots. For that reason, I really do like the Bulldogs. I like that big target. It's important to me to have all that real estate to aim at, right? Again, I'm not the greatest shot in the world. Maybe you are. Maybe you are. And if you are, that's fantastic. But having that extra confidence that you're not going to miss the target, a bigger target, especially on your first couple of shots that you're taking with your crossbow, if it's new arrows or a new crossbow or a new scope, you really want the extra real estate. And that's where the Bulldog shines. Death by Bunjie. One thing we should talk about with regard to targets too, you can't go by arrow penetration in a target. The target is designed to stop arrows. So it's not as though this penetrates or is a test for penetration the way that it would be on an animal or something like that. This is not a good way to test penetration. However, I can tell you that different arrows penetrate differently out of different crossbows. Obviously, more energy is going to penetrate deeper into this target, and that's why the targets are so thick, right? Look at how little penetration Bunjie's arrows at just 0.7 slugs of momentum have, right? I pull it out of there, and we have approximately, what is that? About 4 inches, okay? And what I'm going to do just to demonstrate that, how can I do it? Just holding my finger there, go from one side of that dot. We're probably a full inch, maybe 2 inches past that dot, right, for penetration. We'll compare that with other crossbows. For pulling purposes, you saw how easy it was on that one. This one also pulls. However, look at the difference in penetration and stopping power. This one goes clear across to the other side. Now, this is a great target, don't get me wrong, but it's no Bulldog Plus. And that is with 0.7 slugs of momentum. That's with an arrow that weighs 635 grains in order to get that amount of momentum coming out of that crossbow. With a modern crossbow, you're well past that. Every step up you go, every little tenth that you go up in that momentum category, 0.7 slugs, 0.71, 0.72, etc. The SWAT X1's at 0.74 or 0.75 slugs of momentum. Whole different ball game in terms of penetration. You're worried about veins on a lot of those targets. With the Ravin R29X and those 450 feet per second crossbows and above, that penetration, totally different issue, right? Every little step up that you go in terms of momentum, you are adding more abuse to your target's life, right? So keep that in mind. You got to have a target that's suitable for your crossbow, but I recommend you get a really good target. Get a really good target, and that way you can, if you get a new crossbow or if you go with a heavier arrow, you're all set. These are a lot of fun, and with Bunjie and the Burris Oracle X, I'm able to just sort of set this up and shoot from a distance. That 0.7 slugs of momentum that I get out of this 635 grain arrow, look at the whomping it did on that target. It set that insert right back in this poor little guy. You don't shoot at this target with the Ravin R29X, you understand? Here we are. I didn't even look at the yardage, but we're down around 30, 35 yards with this. Burris Oracle X, it has the rangefinder built in. It just gives me a dot. It also tells me the yardage, but I don't always look and remember what that number was. But 635 grain arrow at 35 yards or so, dead on. Bunjie still got it. These are a lot of fun. These are a lot of fun. It's fun to shoot at these targets, and you know, you're not going to shoot at one of these with a high-speed, modern, ultra-modern crossbows, but you have a lot of fun with this. And look how that heavy arrow, even at, show you how far up we are here, right? There's where we were shooting from under that tent. If I zoom in, you can even see the Bunjinator up there, I bet. Right there, old Bunjie looking down at us right now with pride, and he sees this lovely arrow, about close to a 40-yard shot. I bet it's about 38 yards if I had to guess. And it pushed that insert right in there, 635 grains. Now, you shoot that arrow out of the Ravin R29X and it's going to go through this thing, right? You'll never get it. You won't find it again. It's going to lose some veins or whatever. This target, even with a 400 feet per second crossbow, I had penetration sticking out the other side years ago. We don't have that here. All right, wish me luck. Here we go. The red dot appears instantaneously. Are you ready? Oh! It was years ago with the Scorpid Deathstalker. I had it set up at 75 yards, clear down in that corner, and this target took an arrow from that, and it was sticking out the other side. When I went and inspected that target, the arrow actually had passed clean through the target. It was poking out the other side. That's pretty impressive for a 72-yard shot. This is still fun to have in the backyard. It makes the backyard a lot more fun. I got those little targets there, right? Got targets scattered all over the place. Most of them's going in that 20-yard shot right there, but we still have quite a bit of fun at various yardages. And then we got the 60-yard cherry. Good stuff. What you don't want to do is shoot a field point at a target like this. It is a problem. It is a pain in the neck, but it's not the end of the world. We stand it up like this. We'll see if we can do her one-handed. I don't know. But what I like to do is put one foot on there so it can't get away, and then give it a twist, and then pull it right out. Look at that. Now, this is a 635 grain arrow, 0.7 slugs of momentum, hitting this bad boy with all its might from clear up there, from about 30 yards away, a little over 30 yards. And we have nice shot. I was just aiming for center mass because, again, I'm not sighted in, but that's a good shot. I can go hunt with this thing just about. Pretty happy with that. I tested a little more, but it's real close. That string is working in nicely on Bunjie. These are real heavy arrows. I've got added inserts in here up to 635 grains. I really upped them for bear hunting. Still leaving them on there just in case, right? With a faster crossbow and even more momentum, you're going to have a bigger issue. But that's how you pull them out. Just give them a good yank, a twist, they come right out. I know your modern stuff going to go in even deeper, going to be even more of a problem, but a good yank and a twist, if you have to stand on or sit down with both feet up against it, the arrow in the middle, and pull towards you, pull straight out, give it a twist at the same time, break that seal, that gluey, kind of fabric-y, gluey, foamy seal from the heat of this field point hitting that target. You break that seal, it'll pull right out. You don't need lube. No lube. No lube. No. This is the SWAT X1 shooting its arrow that I'm going to be using for an upcoming bear hunt in Maine. How cool is that? But look at the penetration it's got. That's lengthwise on this target, or widthwise rather. It's like the deepest end of the target, obviously. But if that was a previously shot spot, if I shot, for example, and hit anywhere close to this, that would be losing some veins. So, you know, they have a limited life. Really, you want to be a step above this target if you're using a crossbow like this. Hold on to that, see if I can pull her out of there. Oh, so right there, that's how much of that arrow, hold my arm out far enough, that's how much of that arrow went into that target. Here is the SWAT X1 shooting a 500 or so grain arrow for an upcoming bear hunt. And look how much penetration we have on that insert with this heavier arrow, a little bit heavier than stock, right? Shooting out of the SWAT X1. We're shooting probably 100 feet per second faster, somewhere around 350 with this arrow weight out of the SWAT X1. Probably 100 feet per second faster than the Bunjie arrow, right? When you look at the difference in penetration, this is also a 20-inch arrow. It's the same as this arrow. Same arrow setup, but if we balance that on there, you kind of get an idea for how much of that arrow is in that target. You can see why as you step up in penetration, especially if you've hit a spot where you had shot before, you're going to have even more penetration, start losing veins, that sort of thing. So you got to be mindful of that. when you're picking targets for your backyard fun. Same thing here. We shoot at the boar target with that SWAT X1 arrow and we're poking out the other side. I'd say we're ready for bear. For what it's worth, the SWAT X1 with the Twilight DLX scope at 13 yards, dead on bullseye, but also that is, zoom in even more, that's 40 yards. That is 54 yards. We're windage a little bit left, but it doesn't get much better than that. Like, I ain't taking any shots that far, but that's a bear killing shot right there. And that is a bear killing shot, but I'm not going to be shooting 55 yards. But 54 yards, you can't beat it. I'd say the SWAT X1, the Patriot, really likes those arrows. Yep, got a dead deer in the 60-yard backyard. That arrow, I can't get it out. It's going to take some dry hands. I'm a little sweaty. That doesn't help, but I got to get some gloves, try and pull that arrow, stand right up on top of that target. It really is too much arrow, too much crossbow for that style of target, and that's the problem that you run into. Too much momentum. Some folks will suggest using arrow lube to sort of make it so it's easier to pull out of those block style targets. I don't do that. I'm not going to put some kind of extra grease on an arrow because I don't want that on my arrows when I hunt. Why would I want it on an arrow when I'm in the backyard? I try to have my backyard experience mimic the hunting experience as much as possible. So, I mean, I use a lighted Nox, I use the exact same arrow, the same setup, and a practice point from a Swahhacker that is identical to the actual hunting broadhead. So I go through all those great lengths. I don't want to put lube on there. And I haven't found, the other problem with lube, that lubrication, when it hits the target, that lubrication allows the arrow to penetrate even deeper into the target. So really you just get a greater problem trying to get it out of there. The lube does resist that heat seal, but what I have found, if you get a good grip on the arrow, turn the target on its end, right, and get the arrow so where you can get a hold of it, and just twist it, a quick snap, right, a quick twist will break that heat seal just as well as the lube will do, and then you'll be able to pull that target, that arrow right out of the target. I would try that first. Lube to me would be a last resort. Until next time, all hail Bunjie. I don't know if that worked, but we'll see. Maybe it'll look good.